What's your name?
My name is Drew White.
And Drew, you had an interesting story about what you believe is discrimination in housing in the town or city of Norwood, Ohio. Do you not?
I do indeed.
Would you please explain what that is, what that story is?
Sure. Some years ago, I owned a property in the city of Norwood, which is a city contained within the city of Cincinnati, Ohio. And Norwood has a law that you must get an occupancy permit to be legally permitted to have tenants in the property. One of the requirements to get this occupancy permit is you have to allow representatives of the city government into the property to look for building code violations. Basically, you have to let them in so they can search for evidence of a crime. I was not willing to do that because I'm pretty sure the Constitution is fairly clear about having to cooperate with that kind of thing. So I refused to allow them entry. They refused to issue the occupancy permit as a result. We had to go to court over that a couple times. And I offered to pay the fine but still refused to buy the occupancy permit. And they sort of countered by getting a little hardball and issuing a warrant for my arrest and sending a false report, I believe deliberately, to the state of Ohio, getting my driver's license suspended by claiming that I was a deadbeat dad who had never made child support payments when in fact I'm not a father at all. And I had to take them to Ohio Superior Court and get the Norwood City Attorney lectured by an Ohio Circuit judge to get the whole thing straightened out. So it was basically bureaucratic vindictiveness on their part that instigated the whole thing.
So you see it as an abuse of lawful power by the municipality in order to twist your arm to do something you didn't want to do.
I would perhaps even go half a step further and say I see it as systematic corruption on their part, not just an overstepping of bounds, yes.
You mentioned something about another real estate investor who had an interesting experience in Norwood when that real estate investor, who is a Caucasian, wanted to rent some apartments to African Americans. Could you tell us about that experience in the town of Norwood, Ohio?
Certainly. I have a colleague who owns some rental property in the city of Norwood, and every time this colleague of mine happens to rent to a non-white tenant, the property gets repeated visits, usually from the Norwood Fire Department, who write it up for code violations ranging from the kind of borderline to the utterly ridiculous. And it seems to be there. I think any empirical observer would conclude that there is a pattern of discrimination and abuse happening there. It doesn't happen when there is a white tenant in the property, but if there's any kind of non-white tenant, suddenly the city authorities are there writing tickets and writing orders.
And how often does this happen in the town of Norwood with the real estate investor that you know who has experienced this?
Well, it's been going on for years, and she occasionally has to enlist the help of our local fair housing advocacy agency called HOME, Housing Opportunities Made Equal, to help her sort of beat the Norwood civil authorities back. But the truth is, most of the experienced investors who invest in that area kind of understand what's going on. It's not talked about very much, but everyone knows that Norwood is still, unfortunately, that kind of place, and most of us are ashamed by it, but it's something that you just have to live with.
Do you have any closing thoughts on the situation in Norwood and on investing in real estate in Norwood and renting to people in Norwood?
It's shocking to me that kind of thing still goes on, in this day and age. This isn't, Mississippi in the 1950s. So I think that someone needs to go in and clean house. It's sort of a black eye for the entire community that kind of abuse of power still goes on.
Thank you very much, Drew White.
My pleasure.